大家好，我叫马丁，和马丁，我是荷兰人，不是中国荷兰，我是欧洲荷兰人。然后我10年之前来到北京，可是我觉得我的中文还是不够，所以我今天就还是喜欢说英文吧。So I came 10 years ago to Beijing, and I have a small office, and the office is called in Chinese 行和设计. Actually, it's a really perfect name, I think. It is not invented by me. My professor, Li Xiaodong, came up with this name because I am Helan, He Martin, and my wife is Han Chinese, but also called Zhang. So it's us together doing the Dutch-Chinese design. And that's kind of what we do. We try to integrate the Western and the Eastern philosophy in a new way. Our design philosophy is the foundation of who we are somehow. It's like our life defines what we do, and our life defines what we work on, and also this is into the projects that we do. So where we sit now, our office is based upon what I believe in. The projects, the people I work with is what I believe in. So it's in everything. First of all, I never really wanted to be an architect, and at that time I had started to be a zookeeper, and actually I really enjoyed that because the zoo where I worked is very famous for the group of gorillas. It's the largest group of gorillas in captivity in the world, and it's really a social group. So there's no cages; they're always all together. They are really amongst themselves, and their environment is designed purely for their natural life. And I thought it was amazing. And then I went to study in Delft, which is the most famous university in Holland, and I saw that these buildings that they had there were really terrible. They were all concrete boxes, not made for people. They were made for machines. They were made by machines. I won a small competition when I was 18 years old, when I was just started studying in Delft, for a building which was just like that. It was my statement against the concrete. It was the first building in the world that was fully grown by artificial green wall. Now you see them everywhere in the world, but that was the first one. It was 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And that went very well. I mean, I won the competition, people really liked it, but a lot of people also really hated me for that, and they said, how dare you build this building, it's not going to stand, it's wood, etc., etc. So altogether that led me to think people in the Netherlands at that time and people in Europe, they are not open for new things. Then I thought, where can I go? China is the future. Maybe there they are open to new ideas, and maybe I can contribute a bit, because all I could see on TV were these high towers of more and more concrete, and I said, no, don't do the same as we did in Holland or in America. It's always difficult to find a project and a client that allows you to do what you believe in. So the first difficulty for us is always to find somebody to work with well. So I don't care too much about what is the project, but I care who is the person behind the project. And we had one of these persons approach us for a unique opportunity to design a new private residence in the center of Beijing. And all of the neighbors in that area, because it's an older community, would destroy their house and rebuild it as large as possible with a big concrete box. And he wanted to build this house for his children. I want the house and the space to be really about living and about family and about an experience that they will not be able to have in any other environment. So I said that's perfect, because I believe really that the space you are in can change your view of the world. And if you're growing up in a space that is, where you can see the sky every day and it's beautiful, and there's trees and the sunlight is coming in, and you're not afraid of nature, but nature is together with you, I think you can be a better person. It is a house that is partly underground, and above ground there's only a piece of floating box which has the bedrooms, and the skylight the sunlight can reach down all the way to the bottom. There is natural ventilation. It's oriented towards the sun in Beijing. It's a real natural house that integrates all the latest sustainable technologies to set an example about what living could be in a modern city. You can also see that in the contemporary sciences in China, it's quite easy to understand the concept of quantum mechanics, of difficult mechanics of the future, because it's so natural that things can be two things. The one truth can be two truths. In the West, it's impossible. So I find that this Eastern philosophy of being more flexible, of trusting your instinct and your feelings as well as trusting science and trusting logic, is really a great path for the future, I think. But what I mean to say is Le Corbusier, actually, who is the founder of modern architecture in the West, one of the great master architects, he wrote, "Intuition is the sum of the acquired knowledge." That means what you instinctively feel, it comes from everything that you've learned. So it's right to trust your intuition, because your intuition works faster than your mind. And I think that's important to note. Rem Koolhaas recently did his exhibition in the Guggenheim called The Countryside. So I think everybody around the world is starting to look at things outside of the city and how they are valuable for the life in cities, but also within themselves. The countryside is really a challenge in China, I think. You know, this has become really a way for young Chinese architects to become famous internationally, because wow, you did something really nice looking in the countryside, looks so beautiful. But if you go to visit those projects, most of them are not used, so it's terrible. It doesn't actually help. It only helps the architect. 2 years ago, with our students in Tsinghua, again, tried to initiate some projects in Hebei, just north of Beijing, around the Chongli area, because the new Olympic development is all happening in that area. And there are several villages there, about 30 or 40, that are extremely poor. They are so poor, maybe on average, the household for 1 year, the income is only 400 kwai. But they're right next to Beijing and right next to Chongli. So we provided services of our students to help 4 of these towns to really look at what the people need there and what people could use with their own resources to provide some income. Because, again, like I said, architects have the ability to research and understand these environmental processes and help people better their life, better their income, better their social, but not with placing some weird-looking buildings for the sake of making a building. So I think that's been really successful. They have gotten, we have gotten very good comments back from the local leaders, and we proposed things like, there was one village that had really good water, so we thought we should do something with the water. Maybe we can make a beer brewery, because good beer needs a lot of good water, and you can sell that in Beijing. It's very hip to have this beer. So in that way, we as architects can see that potential. Just like I was describing earlier, how most people are afraid of nature. They want to keep nature out, not good to keep it in. It's the same with the countryside. If people think it is less good, they will not value it. But I'm from Holland. We are one big countryside. So if that can change in China, and people start to see the countryside as something really valuable, then people want to go there. The problem is that in the past, whenever there was a new technology, or something like that, architects would think by themselves, what does this mean, and do we agree with this, can we do something with it, and they would come with a theory or a vision on how they feel about this technology, how that influences the thinking of architecture, the possibilities of future cities and buildings. What I see happening now is that these technologies are all developed outside of the architecture field. There might be smart city systems, there are artificial intelligence systems, and architects are only working on how we can use these systems to build what we want to build. But they're not thinking, how can we really use the thinking behind this to make better or different architecture. I just had a conversation this summer with our new dean, Zhang. But what he also mentioned to me, and I had not thought about it like that, he said, you know, Martin, we are facing a challenge as a profession of architecture also within Tsinghua, because you know, Tsinghua University Architecture School used to be the first choice for top students across China. They would go to Tsinghua Architecture or d.e.r. Economics. Yeah, you would know, you would have the best future possible. But nowadays, he was saying, more and more of these top students choose to go to computer-related sciences. You know, AI, IT, or nano, quantum, all this new stuff, because there is the future. You know, you do a PhD in artificial intelligence and Huawei will hire you for 5 million a year in your first year, right? Why do architecture? And this is a problem because for architecture as a discipline, because architecture has so long isolated itself from sciences, also from humanities, because architects all think they know everything so well. I think it should be really much more away from the act of building a building and more towards integrating environments. Architecture should become more scientific on the one hand, and on the other hand, more humanistic, more people-oriented. So it shouldn't be less about the architect, less about the building. Yeah. It was something I said a few years ago where I thought, you know, actually I want to go beyond this belief that the West is the future and the West is the model and we know everything in the West. I mean, we should have an open mind towards the future, and I understand that people are afraid to lose their position. But I think if we can be allies and we can learn from each other. Of course, China can learn from America still and from Europe also. But China is really, really the future. And I don't know if really the Chinese generation currently really knows what that means, because I feel still, I mean, everybody in China is very confident, but they really want to be the best. But why? You know, what are you going to do with that? What does that mean? It comes with a responsibility, and that's what I mean to say this post-Western is about taking that responsibility yourself as a person in every day-to-day life to live your life in a good way. You know, you're responsible to the environment, you're responsible to people around you, and you're thinking about the future like that. And I feel in China that's possible. I think people inflate too much their own ability to really do things. I believe in that. I don't believe anymore that I know everything. I believe I can learn from others as much as I can learn from myself. And we'll see about that.